working to mend ties to the United States and engage with the world. But what was really interesting about it was how it sort of glosses over the fact that, you know, the North Korean state regime has been painting Americans as only maybe 10% more demonic than they actually are. And it says, the cause of the hostility between our two nations was a result of a fixation on the evils of the past. It doesn't talk about who committed those evils or why these evils were focused on, but I think that's about the best that we're going to get. It's like, why did we say that? We just focused on bad things that happened before. That's why we said that, but we want to move forward.
We know this from our own country, that the party line can change instantly.
Yes.
And the official politically correct position is, this is you know, we were always at war with East Asia. Or in this case, we were never at war with East Asia or whatever.
Well, in this case, actually, now the North Koreans were like sort of message to their people that was then and this is now. It's like, I thought we hated Americans. We did yesterday, and now it's today.
Which is one of those things. To be fair, that's one of those things that Kim Jong-un can do that is harder to do in a country that has, quote, democracy.
Because we are. That's why.
Yeah, here in this country, that kind of a party line shift would have taken hours of media preparation to accomplish, because you have to convince the American people. There, it took minutes. That's the efficiency of an autocratic state, as opposed to democracy, where things could take dozens of minutes.
Yeah, speaking of faint praise for democracy, Tucker Carlson had a very interesting perspective on this. So, if we normalize North Korea, there is the question of, you know, sure, South Korea and Japan and the United States will be safe from a nuclear missile from them, but it won't change the fact that North Korea is a regime that keeps people in concentration camps. And, you know, Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Il-sung. It's very interesting that North Korea is both a socialist state and evidently a hereditary monarchy. You know, they keep people in concentration camps. And Tucker Carlson said on this, normalizing dictators line, he basically said, you know, it's very silly to focus on the fact that Kim Jong-un kills people. That's what governments do. You know, especially even governments that we're allied with, they also kill people, which is a very libertarian way of looking at the state. Even though Tucker Carlson was Tucker Carlson meant it in a sort of like shrugging, what can you do? That's the way the world is way. Yeah. But even then, it's still accurate. It's like, oh, this state kills people. It's like, newsflash, all states kill people.
Yeah, it's one of those things where sometimes certain political scientists will do this, or like this is like a Machiavelli thing, where people still debate, was Machiavelli just being objective about the way power works, or was it like a critique? You know what I mean? Like, when you just describe the state honestly and objectively, you end up sounding like you're like a radical Rothbardian for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Because unless you add the part where you say, and this is a good thing, or and this is fine, if you just say, well, this is what the government does, then it's like, it sounds like, oh, what are you, a Rothbardian? It's like, no, that's just a fact.
Yeah.
That's just me not being ideological and explaining what the government does. Did you see Tucker's interview with Trump?
No.
It was really kind of a pathetic spectacle, I think.
Well, it was like a total softball, just...
Oh, of course. Everything's just, what about this? And then it's basically just him saying, what's your take on this, that, or the other thing? There was no, pushing back. There was no disagreements. He asked him about, and then he would just ask him about, basically give us a soundbite about things I have been talking about on my show. So, like, his big thing about the blight in America's liberal cities. Now, this is a funny thing about that, in most administrations that are Republican, you would see lots of stories about the homelessness crisis and the epidemic of blight in the cities, and the idea being that, like, the country always turns into a hellish dystopian wasteland whenever there's a Republican in office. This is the only time there's been a Republican in office where now that's changed, because Trump pointed out that there's a crisis of homelessness and et cetera in liberal cities.
Yeah.
And now they're all saying, no, there's no such thing, even though months ago they were all saying it was. Tucker asked him some question about that, and Trump didn't even really give an answer. He just was like, we can't allow it. Because he basically asked him, what are you going to do about the fact that San Francisco is a dump and New York has become a hell state and all these other things? And instead of saying, like, well, that's not my authority as president. I can't fix San Francisco. He said, well, they're not allowed to ruin our cities. It's bad for the country, when for foreign leaders to come here and see that there's poverty and homelessness, etc. And we're looking into it. So, yeah. And
we're looking into it, the classic Trump line for
exactly.
now.
Any Democrat who said that, what would Tucker have said? He would have said, like, what do you mean you're looking into it? What are you going to do about it? There's people defecating in the streets. There's needles all over the place. You're looking into what exactly? What are you going to do? With Trump, he was like, oh, cool, you're looking into it. Very nice. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. President. Very cool.
Yeah, exactly. It was so gross. I mean, I get that he's probably friends with him, and at a certain point, what are you supposed to, like, die on every hill? But it feels like Tucker Carlson, of all people, who, the sworn enemy of lying, pomposity, smugness, and groupthink, it's Trump there, the most powerful, ostensibly the most powerful man in the world. Maybe Tucker is at this point. I don't know. Maybe Trump should have been interviewing Tucker. I don't know. You're not going to push back on anything. You have no disagreements with the president. It's kind of silly. It's just silly.
Maybe, but it's possible if Trump had said something, I don't know, if he had said something that was mainstream conservative, I'm sure if Trump had said the free market will solve the urban housing problem, then Carlson would have found it in him to push back and ask questions.
Would he? Because he basically said that about Google censorship, and Carlson doesn't fight back. He just kind of goes, apparently you can cuck the tuck, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Speaking of leftists in concentration camps, let's talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Let's not.
Yeah, I know. But here's the thing.
Isn't it funny how our section on the Democrats is almost like 2/3 of it is her?
Yeah.
And the Republicans are constantly going on about how, oh my God, did you know she's dumb? Like, she's so dumb. Oh, man. Oh, boy, what a dummy. Really? Because 10 minutes ago she was a bartender, and now you have elevated her to maybe the most important person in her political party. She gets 90.
AOC has seen AOC has seen her income multiply by a factor of 10 at least.
Oh, yeah. And now she's a household name.
Yeah.
Which in politics is like everything. That's more important than money.
Yeah. She's in the safest possible seat she could. She's fine, okay? Like, AOC can wipe her tears from your insults with dirty New York political machine money. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, she's set for life.
Yes.
And what did she do this week in her her ongoing brilliant strategy to play the media like a fiddle and get massive attention for herself and the issues that she thinks will help her, which is 90% of politics is getting attention.
So you will remember that last week we discussed the camps that may or may not be concentration camps. And I was very upset that the right was resorting to what I found to be a very strange rhetorical strategy. And it seems that the reason they resorted to the strategy is because they didn't really have any alternative. So AOC decided to actually go to one of these migrant camps. She described overcrowded facilities. She said there's abuse. It's disgusting in there. These people are barely eating. They barely have access to hygiene materials. And then one charge, she said that some of the migrants were being made to drink from toilets.
Brilliant by her, by the way. True or not, it was brilliant because that image pops into your head immediately. And even if you later find out it didn't happen, it's good persuasion because the image was in your head, and even if you now say, oh, well, I know that didn't happen, the feeling you got is never going to go away. That feeling of like, wow, that's horrible.
Yeah, if even
won that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. If even half of the things that AOC has said are true, these facilities are at least as bad as medium security prisons.
Yeah.
If nothing else, these migrants are in prison-like conditions, not yet having committed a crime. And some people say, wait a minute, aren't these people illegal immigrants? No. The people in these camps are the ones who complied with Trump's request to, instead of storming the border and then asking for an asylum consideration, Trump insisted, come in at a legal point of entry, and then we'll process your claims, and then we'll see what happens after that. So the ones who submitted to ICE at the border and asked for asylum were put into these facilities, right? And I bet they're feeling pretty dumb about that right now.
Yeah.
They probably should have just sneaked across the border.
For the Republicans on this, so you said if half or even a third of what she alleges is true, So if none of it's true, she still wins the political battle because she got the attention, she got the persuasion points, and those don't go away. You can't retroactively take them back. And if any of it's true, if a third of it's true or a quarter of it's true, then the Republicans look like pieces of shit because how do you say, well, we're a great country and, we give freedom and opportunity to everyone, and then you have to explain this. And even if you're going to say, well, she's not telling the truth, she made it up, it seems like you'd say, well, then why aren't you looking into it? Why aren't you doing something about it? Because it seems like there's kind of no argument against it from the mainstream political point. Without saying something really cold-blooded, how are you going to say, well, I'm not even going to look into this because it can't be true? Well, a normal person goes, well, why wouldn't you look into it? We don't want anyone. It puts them in a bad position, and they have no strategy to get out of it.
Yeah, here are the two strategies. Strategy number one.
But she's an idiot.
Oh, not only is she an idiot, apparently she's rude. That's strategy number one.
Who else can we think of who was famously called both an idiot and rude?
Yeah.
And 6 months later was the president.
Yeah, because they were saying, there are reports from some of the agents that Scott C got me doing it, that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was like shouting at some of the guards and was raising her voice at them. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a 5'4" Latina woman. There's absolutely no way that an officer in a prison is or an armed guard is frightened of her, except that, of course, in her capacity as a member of Congress, which gives her power of life and death in certain ways.
Yeah.
The second one is getting ICE agents.
That would be irrelevant based on yelling.
Right.
You quietly explain to them things, so it's silly.
Yeah, and then the other one is that they're now Fox News, and it's really only is getting like ICE agents and CBP agents to come in and say, I've been working in ICE for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like what Miss Ocasio-Cortez is saying. She's spreading lies about our brave officers and men and women in blue and da-da-da-da. And they're also now sharing videos of ICE agents, looking at the camera and walking through the facility into like empty cells and or pointing at carts filled of like, push carts filled with, snacks and stuff. It's like, anybody here in this facility has access to these snacks whenever they want. Or they're going into an empty, like a totally clean, empty cell and saying, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says that they're drinking from toilets, but no, you see, well, because much like a prison cell, these things only have one water input. So what happens is the toilet and the sink are kind of the same thing.
Yeah, like a micro fridge.
Yeah. There's like a sink on top of it, and so the guy's like, see, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is really blind. Which when they said drink from toilets, what that means is that they're the same fixture. Because look, and then he activated the water fountain on top of it and filled with water, and then he drank it on the camera. See, this is totally drinkable water. There's no way on planet Earth that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Unless you're saying she was literally lying, but there's no way.
She since strengthened it and said they were drinking out of the bowl because she said in the instance she was talking about, it was broken. And they were told you can drink out of the bowl. Right.
There's no way she saw that and thought like, oh man, that the water fountain water must be toilet water.
But by the way, it doesn't matter because even if she's telling a total lie and it's just that she conflated the two because they're one thing, that's still the type of toilet situation you have in a prison.
Right.
Which goes back to your point that this is still prison-like conditions for people who are our dreamers.
Our dreamers.
They have the dreams that we've all forgotten.
Yeah. There's one thing I don't want to call it in defense of ICE. I did say they've committed no crime, but one of the things that is contributing to this, children in cages situation is that a lot of these people coming as quote unquote refugees are bringing children that aren't theirs so as to improve the strength of the refugee claims. But ICE has started DNA testing them at the border. And then when the children are revealed not to be those of the adults they're with, they're separated. So some of these people are, at the very least, committing paternity fraud. At worst, sex trafficking or something. So I can walk back.
Can I just throw in my cynical take, by the way, that an alternate explanation for why they would be doing that at the border could also be that you test to see if a kid belongs to someone, because if it doesn't, that gives you an excuse to take the kid away.